In this Monster Hunter Wilds video, we'll be going through 7 details we found in the Monster Hunter Wilds trailer, the next Monster Hunter game in the 20-year-long Monster Hunter franchise being developed and published by Capcom. Monster Hunter Wilds, or Monster Hunter 6, has been highly anticipated for over 4 years since the last mainline game, Monster Hunter World, and it has finally received a proper trailer during the Game Awards 2023. From what was shown in the minute-long trailer, it looks like the new installment to the series may be receiving some new gameplay features that we haven't seen before in the franchise, which we will be diving into in this video. I'll be going through 7 tiny details that we picked up from the trailer and put on my tinfoil hat and do some speculation on how these details hint to possible gameplay features we will be seeing in the upcoming Capcom title. But before we start analyzing, in case you were confused as to why this game is being called Monster Hunter 6 despite tons of other Monster Hunter titles being released, Wilds is going to be a mainline game in the series. Mainline games are essentially the bread and butter of the Monster Hunter franchise, while other games are a little more spin-offy with some distinct mechanics and combat differences from the basic Monster Hunter formula. The last Monster Hunter game released was Monster Hunter Rise, but the last mainline game was Monster Hunter World, the 5th mainline game in the franchise, thus making Wilds the 6th game. With that out of the way, let's get started with the details. In the very first scene of the trailer, it already doesn't look much like a normal Monster Hunter game. We can see this desert-like area, which is actually a golden savanna covered in dust, and most notably, it's covered with tons of monsters. The armadillo-like monsters showcased here are new and not something that's been shown in previous titles, but the most interesting thing about this shot is monster density. We've never really seen more than 8 monsters at once on the screen, so this kind of mob density with 20 or 30 monsters is definitely something new that we can look forward to. The next scene also shows us a bunch of tiny birds perched on top of these armadillo-like monsters, coexisting for food, and the scene after that shows us a herd of small dinosaurs racing past another pack of large monsters that resemble a bipedal version of the Aptonoth from Monster Hunter World. From all these herds and amount of monsters showcased in just the first 10 seconds of the trailer, we can assume there will probably be herds of specific monsters that roam around certain areas of the map. If this is the case, there's definitely a possibility of missions or quests centered around capturing unique creatures in the herd, separating the herd or shepherding them to another location using the various monster hunting methods at your disposal. The next detail is the new mount that the hunter is riding. At this point in the trailer, a lot of people actually thought this was another Final Fantasy game given the amount of enemies, and that this mount looks exactly like a Chocobo. The hunter is shown riding it while it runs away from a stampede of Yeti-like monsters chasing him into the herd of armadillo monsters. Throughout the trailer, we see the mount has 3 different modes for traversal: a bipedal walking mode with its wings folded back, a quadrupedal running mode where it sprints on all 4 legs, and a gliding mode which unfurls the mount wings and allows it to glide over short distances. That's not all there is to the mount though, as if you look closely at the back of the mount near its tail, there appears to be a bunch of supplies and decorations that make this mount seem special. It's very possible that these decorations could be hinting that the mount will act as a sort of portable camp to replenish supplies, or maybe even do things that were once previously available in the hub like crafting, cooking, or smithing. There is also another special supply on the side of the mount and on the hunter himself that we will take a look at a little bit later. The next scene of the trailer is when the Yeti monster is chasing the hunter. He navigates through a herd of armadillos in an attempt to get away from them and seems to successfully distract them by provoking the aggressive Yeti monsters to attack the small armadillos. This isn't exactly a new feature in the franchise, as we've seen territory wars between colliding monsters before, which usually ended in a monster running away and dropping some nice items. However, this time around, it seems like the monster was led to a herd and distracted into eating the armadillos and throwing them around with his bare teeth. Definitely an interesting feature that probably confirms that there will still be monster versus monster spectacles to see in the game, and that they will perhaps be more common and maybe even with a bit more variety. Once the dust cloud goes over the monsters and the hunters, we can see that the weather of the landscape suddenly changes into a harsh thunderstorm, with lightning raining down on the hunter and monsters periodically. Intriguingly, the armadillos from before seem to have a method of catching the lightning, specifically the armadillos that have evolved to grow spikes on their backs to act as lightning rods. This feature could lead to a bunch of possibilities from a gameplay standpoint. The armadillo could be buffed as a result of the lightning and deal extra elemental damage if it hits you with its shiny pointy spike. It could be that if you defeat it, you get a unique lightning spike crafting material which could be used to create a special lightning weapon or armor piece. It could also just be a way that the armadillos in the world have evolved to protect the rest of the herd from dangerous lightning strikes and thunderstorm scenarios, which would explain why there are only a few of them scattered throughout the herd. Regardless of what the related gameplay feature could be, the weather dynamic looks like a super exciting feature that is hinting at introducing special weather mechanics that could change how monsters behave or attack based on the current climate. In that same scene with the lightning spike, we get the clearest image of what is on the side of the hunter's mount. This is very likely a light bowgun given that the shape of the stock is a perfect match and that the pouch containing the weapon is about the right size to contain the rest of the bow. This is an important detail because throughout the trailer we can also see the hunter has a greatsword on his back at the same time. Previous installments in Monster Hunter have never allowed the hunter to have more than one active weapon at once, so this could be a huge departure, one that could change what we know about the fundamentals of Monster Hunter combat. There are a few possibilities. The first is that the hunter only has the bowgun as an optional weapon, which they can equip upon resting at the portable camp with the supplies on his mount. This would basically be the same system as Monster Hunter World, where you could swap weapons at the camp, but this time you would only be able to swap between two weapons you bring out into the world, in this case the greatsword and light bowgun. Another possibility is that the monster is allowed to bring both a melee weapon and a ranged weapon into combat at the same time and switch between them. The last possibility I can think of is that the hunter can have any two weapons of his choice on himself at the same time regardless of whether it's ranged or melee, such as a greatsword and lance, which would be the most game-changing out of all possibilities in terms of how combat would work when compared to a traditional Monster Hunter game. Regardless if it's one of these possibilities or another, it does seem like you're going to have a way to swap weapons out on the landscape somehow, whether that's through the mount and a camps-like system, or whether you can swap them out more quickly. The scene right after we see the mount being used to hop over the train gives us a nice close-up as to what the hunter is wearing and what he looks like. We can see things we already talked about, the greatsword and supplies on the mount, but if we take a closer look at the glove, we can see that the slinger from Monster Hunter World will be returning, though it looks slightly smaller now. If the new slinger is going to be anything like the one we saw in World, it will be able to load and sling projectiles you can find throughout the map, or distract and interrupt monsters, or capture monsters with the capture net, etc. The other thing we can see on the hunter's apparel is a small lamp resembling the Scoutfly cage from Monster Hunter World. We also saw a small snippet of some Scoutflies in previous scenes where the mount jumped around the environment, pretty much confirming that the game's navigation system will not be using the new system from Monster Hunter Rise, and will be sticking to the Scoutfly system to show which way to go that was first introduced in World. In the final frame, what we see is an epic landscape shot of the world with the dust now uncovered from a strong breeze, unveiling a beautiful golden savanna under what looks to be a barren desert. This landscape shot is insane to most Monster Hunter fans as the scale of what we can see in a singular zone is massive. Capcom have not confirmed whether the game will be open world or not, but from what we can see, it's definitely going to be the biggest area we have ever seen in a Monster Hunter game regardless. There is a little more to this image though. The big structures in the center of the image and the left side of the image could be fossils of a monster, perhaps the main monster in the game, but as of now, it's unclear. We can see that there are more of these lightning rods from the thunderstorm scene scattered throughout the map, which maybe tells us that thunderstorms are going to be the main weather theme of the game, and that humans have adapted to it by constructing these giant lightning rods throughout the world. Overall, the world that we can see just from this one shot looks massive for a Monster Hunter title, and between that and the things that we see on the mount, it just gives the impression that the game is going to be much more open, and perhaps even open world. Capcom has revealed the release date to be sometime in 2025 for Monster Hunter Wilds, but no specific time frame in that year. We highly suspect, though, that it'll be around Q1, as both Monster Hunter World and Rise were both released in Q1, and the Japanese fiscal year ends in March. Producer Ryozo Tsujimoto has also confirmed there will be another big announcement on the information of the game sometime during the summer of 2024, which could possibly be referring to Summer Game Fest, Gamescom, PAX West, or maybe even Tokyo Game Show. The game will be released on PC, Steam, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S, with no current confirmation on releasing for previous generation consoles. Final thoughts. There hasn't been much info about Monster Hunter Wilds except for the trailer and a small interview with Ryozo Tsujimoto, who simply stated that their goal for Wilds was to create new levels of detailed creatures and ecosystems, a very vague but promising statement. The game looks to be perhaps a step in a new direction for the franchise, which could end up as either a disastrous or amazing depending on how Capcom handles it. Given Capcom's clean track record of positive feedback for the games in the Monster Hunter franchise, it's safe to say that whatever they are cooking, it's probably going to be well worth the wait, and I'm excited to see more details this coming summer. So what did you guys think of the Monster Hunter Wilds trailer? Did you guys see some of these details when you were watching it, or did you glance over them? Did you guys play Monster Hunter World and Rise? Are you excited for the next mainline game? Let us know in the comments below.